From the front lines of fire and life safety, this is the FireAlarm.com show. Stephan Stanzione, Wayne D. Moore, Fabiana Andrade, Michael Harley, and today, a special guest joins us from Ramtech Global, James Pecz. Welcome to the FireAlarm.com show, your destination for the latest innovations, the sharpest conversations, and the technology shaping the future of this industry. Real-world insight, direct conversations with the manufacturers, the engineers, and the decision makers shaping fire and life safety from the inside. For engineers, for contractors, for AHJs, for facility managers, for students entering the field, for everyone who wants to stay ahead of what's next. This is the show the industry has been waiting for. And tonight, the premiere, we go inside the most dangerous gap in fire safety, the one that exists on every active construction site in America. From the day the build begins to the day the alarm system goes online, every site lives inside a vulnerability window. No hardwired detection, no centralized alerting, no monitored evacuation. Tonight, we close that gap. Lead the conversation every episode. The host of the FireAlarm.com show, the president of FireAlarm.com, an electrical engineer driving what's next in fire and life safety. Please welcome your host, Stephan Stanzione.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks everyone for being here. Fire and life safety is one of the oldest industries in the world. And right now, it's in the middle of one of the biggest shifts it's ever seen. New technology, new code, a new generation stepping in next to the people who built this field. Tonight, we put that shift on stage, and that's what this show is. But I'm not going to do it alone. Every episode, the man I'm bringing on has more code expertise than just about anyone on this planet. He's the man who's going to keep us all honest. My co-host, Wayne D. Moore. Happy
Happy to be here, Stephan.
So, we're finally talking about the gap that nobody wants to admit has existed.
Stephan, the code's been admitting it for years. It's just the industry hasn't been listening.
Every active construction site in America has a fire safety gap. Manual fire watch, air horns, methods that haven't fundamentally changed in decades. While the buildings, the materials, and the risks have changed completely. And that's what tonight is about. But before we get there, there's been a lot moving in the industry this week. Wayne, what's caught your attention?
Well, Stephan, a few things, but the one I keep coming back to is the code itself. The 2027 edition of NFPA 241 is coming out later this year. And for the first time in history, NFPA 72, the National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code, is about to add a dedicated chapter for temporary fire alarm systems.
First time ever.
First time. And the temporary phase has never been formally addressed in NFPA 72. So that's not a footnote revision.
Yeah.
That's the code catching up to the job site.
And all of which sets up exactly the right conversation for tonight. Our guest has spent his career inside the gap we're talking about. He's seen it on more active sites than almost anyone in the industry. He's coming to us from Ramtech Global, and Michael's going to bring him in.
Tonight's guest leads the way as one of the most forward-thinking companies in fire detection. He's the voice behind the technology that's redefining how we protect active construction sites. Coming from Ramtech Global, please welcome James Pecz.
All right, James, thank you so much for being here, all the way from North Carolina, the new Ramtech headquarters, right?
Correct, yeah, for North America, yeah.
So, when we started building this show, we knew the premiere, we wanted a real conversation about, a real problem. And we needed someone that's been inside this problem. So let's get to work. Take us from the beginning. Walk us through this fire safety gap that we're talking about.
Yeah, so a great way to kind of explain this is when we think about a permanent building, there are many requirements from a fire safety point of view that are mandated by code and specification. things like fire doors, firewalls, sprinkler systems, fire alarm systems that you have to have by code, by law. But then when we look at a construction site where potentially the risk of fire is much higher than it is in a permanent building, there are hot works being carried out, there are various different trades there. At the moment, we don't have any kind of requirement for that construction phase. And that's really the gap, that we don't put the importance on fire protection during a period where the risk of fire is actually probably much higher than it is in a permanent building. So that's the problem we see, globally, that in the work we've been doing for the past 30 years in this industry.
Yeah, so, literally every site in America operates inside this vulnerability window. From the day the build begins to the day that the fire alarm system goes online, no hardwired detection, no centralized alerting, no monitoring or evacuation. So Wayne, that's what the code is supposed to be addressing. Where does NFPA 241 actually fit in here?
So it really starts when the jurisdiction adopts the International Building Code and International Fire Code. The Fire Code requires a fire watch during the evening hours in a construction site. And that's just somebody walking around with supposedly the chance to call the fire department if they see a fire. And that's assuming they're near where the event happens. 241 comes after that. The IFC actually says, in addition to the requirements in the IFC, 241 requirements shall apply. And so now we have a document that's strictly looking at a demolition or a construction site requirements. Dedicated, 241 is dedicated to that issue.
Yeah, that's great. So the code is there, the enforcement is there, and yet, obviously, we know that every active site is still operating inside this window. So, James, from inside the field, why has the industry kept working, around this instead of actually solving it for so long?
I think there's a number of reasons. I think there isn't a mandatory requirement to have to do anything up until hopefully the changes that are going to be coming in the near future. The NFPA 241, it will mention that you need a means of raising an alert in the event of a fire, but that can be interpreted by someone shouting, someone ringing a bell, someone blowing an air horn. There isn't a mandatory requirement to actually go that extra level. So avoidance sometimes from contractors, they don't want the increased cost of installing a sufficient fire alarm and protection and evacuation system during construction. And also it's just changing the mindset and a habit. When you've done something for as long as these guys have been using air horns and using Firewatch, it's difficult to break that mindset and to move to future technologies and to explore what's available in the market if the code isn't forcing them down that avenue itself.
Yeah, I think that's the real problem our industry always kind of faces is, getting people to move along with the tech.
Yeah, technology almost always leads.
Yeah.
And the codes always follow. So it's sometimes hard to educate the fire marshals to, use the codes in a better sense.
Literally. And I guess the best thing is that, you told me something that most people tonight haven't even heard yet, that the NFPA 241 is now going to inform NFPA 72. And I know both of you, but Wayne has definitely got direct knowledge of the code committee voting that's going to reshape this next revision. Do you want to talk us through that?
Right. The NFPA 241 committee came to NFPA 72 and said, look, we need you to have something on temporary fire alarm systems because we want to reference you rather than try and redo the system in their code. And so we now have a proposal in front of the NFPA 72 committee that they'll look at in July for a temporary fire alarm systems chapter.
Wow.
A standalone chapter that'll be used as a reference by 241 to inform the contractors and of course the ASJs. This is what you need to put in for a temporary fire alarm system.
Yeah. And I know, the biggest mismatch is kind of what we discussed, underneath all this is that the building technology always advances faster than the code. Is there anything you could tell me more about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately, there's a number of things that slow down the process. We have new equipment that comes online has to go to UL. And so really before any AHJ is going to accept a product, they're going to ask for that or ask for something similar that will prove that they don't have to worry about the equipment being reliable. And the key to this whole thing has been reliability. There's been a lot of stutter starts in the code for wireless, but it's never really happened because of the reliability issue.
Yeah, and
now I was just going to say,
Yeah,
I think also wireless technology, it's taken a while for people to start to really trust it as a reliable way of communicating between devices. But I think, in many aspects of technology now, wireless is the only way. Slowly but surely, wired systems are going to become obsolete over years to come. And I think with new technologies that are available, wireless is more and more secure, more and more reliable, and is starting to be trusted now more. Still not perfect, but we are starting to see a little bit more buy-in. And ultimately, like Wayne said, look, technology moves far faster than the codes do. And I think one of the challenges we see in the industry is almost developers, owners, contractors hiding behind the code and utilising it to do the bare minimum rather than to do the maximum, and to actually investigate new technology that's out there that can actually increase safety. Because we're talking about life safety, we're talking about people's lives here. So trying to do the bare minimum shouldn't be the mindset that we're looking at. We should be looking at taking those next steps and really enhancing fire safety in construction across North America.
Yeah, literally exactly that. And there's more on all that and where all the standards are heading as we go deeper in the podcast. So make sure you check that out. It'll be us three. So James, I know we talked about this earlier, but let's put some numbers on this. So when a construction fire happens, what does it cost? Not just dollars, the full picture.
I mean, that's a huge question. I mean, to lead into that, there's a mindset across the industry that you've heard the saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think that's the mindset, but it is broken. And that's the thing that we need contractors to realise, and the code is going to help to push that message. Because just looking at NFPA's reported numbers, every single year there are around 4,000 fires on construction sites across the US. That costs roughly $400 million in property damage. Also, soberingly, 50 to 60 injuries every year and 6 deaths caused just by fires, not by other health and safety issues or accidents on sites.
Wow.
So people are losing their lives. Another interesting fact around the numbers is that just over half of the fires that we have in construction across North America each year actually happen out of hours. So that shows that traditional methods like Firewatch that are meant to be, looking at those fires and notifying the local authorities in the event of it happening, these fires are being reported, so it's not working. Without trying to sound out of turn, they're just the fires that are actually reported.
Yeah.
How many hundreds, if not thousands of fires, small fires happened on construction sites each year?
Literally.
Maybe they're not big enough to go for an insurance claim, so the contractor or the developer or the owner, well, let's keep that one under our hats. We don't want to alert people that we've had a fire on site. So they're just the reported fires. So staggering numbers really, and it really just shows that there is, a change needed. And thankfully shows like this are going to help spread that knowledge and push the industry towards making that change.
Yeah, and that's the goal. None of that touches the human costs, like James said. The workers, the residents nearby,
The environment.
the environment. The first responder is walking into something which could have been prevented. That's always the game in fire and life safety.
Of course.
And it's only even upped in construction. So, that's the gap, and, decades of working around it, and now it's always been reactive, but now we're talking about getting proactive. So, Ramtech built West 3 specifically for this. So take us inside the engineering, talk about the wireless, why temporary, why now, tell me.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, although this is new technology to North America, we've been doing this for 15 or 16 years now across the world, and our systems have been installed in over 35 countries across the world, protecting literally thousands of construction sites. The reason the WES system came to be in the first place was due to a change in code in the UK actually, where something called the Joint Code of Practice was brought in, and there was a requirement to have an interconnected alarm system during construction. And at that time, there was no wireless systems available. So contractors started to use wired systems, which naturally they had problems with. Yeah, construction sites aren't environments where you want wire trailing across. There's trades on there, when they're doing the plasterboarding, they move the board, they cut the wire if it's in the way, the fire system's not active. So we were approached as wireless experts all those years ago to come up with a system that would be suitable for a construction environment. And I think that's the key thing with what we offer at Ramtech and the WES system, is it's specifically designed for use in challenging and hazardous environments. So everything from the way the mesh connectivity works, the wireless signal, very secure, no single point of failure. Look, this is a life safety system. We need to be confident that it's going to activate in the event of an emergency taking place. So we went to the full lengths to ensure that we were confident in what we were bringing into the market was going to be able to carry out that purpose. So the build quality, the fact that we use dust resistant detection to help mitigate false alarms, the fact that the system has the ability to talk into the cloud and communicate with off-site monitoring stations. This isn't a permanent system that's been shoehorned into the temporary industry. This is a system that was specifically designed for this application, for construction, for infrastructure, for industrial, for marine, really challenging in environments where normal fire systems just wouldn't be able to meet those kinds of requirements needed. So the wireless system, the mesh is what's critical here, because for those who are watching this, who are old enough to remember the old Christmas tree that lights, where if one bulb in the middle of the line was to go out and you removed it, the rest of them didn't work. With that linear kind of technology, the WES system is designed as a flooded mesh. So what that means is every single unit we install on a project has the ability to communicate, to receive and send signals to every other unit. What that means is if you lose a few units out of the system, the other units just find a way around. They don't rely on those units to be able to communicate back to the control panel and notify offsite and notify the site. So that's really important. It's massive. And with the construction sites having, thick concrete, steel, environmental factors, even vibration that can affect wireless systems, our system has really been tested and proven time and time again to work in those environments. So that wireless connectivity doesn't only offer that security of connection, but it also offers flexibility. Construction sites are such dynamic environments that having wired systems just isn't going to work. Alongside that, we have a 3-year battery life. So you can install the system on a construction site and not have to worry about engineers having to constantly be coming and changing batteries. That's going to cause downtime for a life safety system, and we don't want that. So the system can be installed, it can be tested, and then you don't have to worry about changing batteries constantly. So I think the key thing here is that we've gone into this taking the conditions, the environments and the markets that we work in seriously and designing a system that's specifically designed to meet the challenges that we see there.
Yeah, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the pitch. So now I know, Wayne, you got the questions that every specifier or AHJ they're going to ask. Well, what do you got?
Yeah, I would say that, in fact, James has already answered a few of them, but the real issues that I've always seen with AHJs and with specifying engineers is what's the reliability?
Yeah.
I don't want to specify something that is going to fail in the field. And the AHJs are saying, well, it's wireless, and I'm used to my wireless smoke detector in my home not working every time because of something put in front of it. So they have a background in wireless that doesn't fit what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
The mesh system is the most reliable system on the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think once that is shown to the AHJs, to the specifying engineers, they won't have any kind of troubles working with this.
I think a great way to back the statements, because I can sit here and say anything, but if I told you that the Navy was actually one of our biggest end users of the product and that our system is installed on marine ships, on Navy vessels, if you imagine the challenging environment that a ship brings with the steel bulkheads, and our wireless connectivity still is strong and works in that environment, that kind of gives testament to the technology we're using and the reliability of it.
Yeah. Not even being at sea. Yeah. But yeah, so, this is honestly the most honest specifier conversation that I think I've heard about temporary fire safety. So let's see what that looks like in practice, real projects, real outcomes. So James, you've deployed WES 3 across some of the most, worldwide, like you said, and now across some of the most demanding sites in North America. Giant sites, really amazing use cases. Why don't you take us inside 2 or 3 of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you say, you know, we're still pretty new technology here, but we have been here and testing the water for nearly 6 years now. We're starting to see more and more buy-in from major general contractors, and we're being trusted on huge multi-million-dollar construction projects. And what I'll talk you through a few of them, and that kind of give different applications in some ways, just to show the diversity of what we do, and obviously the dynamic construction environment. No site's the same, so it's important that the system you install has the ability to be flexible and to be able to support different environments, different layouts. So we'll start with the Coney Island Hospital, which is, yeah, exactly. Everyone knows about the Coney Island Hospital. So our system was utilised there during huge renovation work. So it was upgrades, renovation. So it wasn't new construction. And ultimately, because only part of the building at each time was being renovated, there was active live parts of the building still. So it's critical that during that construction and that renovation, that a fire alarm system could be installed that would, one, meet the requirements of what the permanent system was in there, so a like-for-like replacement. If there was a detector there before, there has to be one there now. But two, also that it can link into the permanent fire alarm system, so that if there is an emergency, a fire in the construction side of the building, that the permanent side and the active side of the building is still notified. So WES was installed on there, and it was almost like a phased approach. So they bought a few hundred of WES detectors at call points and a control panel, and it was installed in phases. So as they refurbed and upgraded certain sections of the building, the WES system was deployed, they carried out the works. When the permanent system was then ready to be reactivated in that area, the WES system would be removed and moved to the next section. So it allows to follow the risk of fire as the risk changes in that kind of environment. So that was a really nice application, and obviously a well-renowned project as well.
If I could just interject that some of our listeners may not know what a call point is.
Of course, that is a great point. So that's the unit that will give the audible and visual alert, but also the ability to manually raise the alarm in the event of a fire.
So like a manual station.
Yeah, like a pull station, basically. So we know what a detector is, but this is the ability to manually raise the alarm if you see a fire or
Sorry to interrupt.
Don't worry, you're always welcome. You can always interrupt.
Wayne can interrupt either of us anytime.
Anytime you want. The next one was, let's talk about the Gaylord Pacific Hotel over in Chula Vista, which is, I believe, is the largest hotel in California. I went there a couple of times. I mean, that's like a town on its own. It takes like an hour to walk around the thing. So again, an interesting application, because we were used for evacuation, but not detection during some of the construction. But then what the Gaylord Pacific wanted to do is they actually fly in hundreds of people to test the facilities before it's actually open to the public. They call it heads in beds. So they fly in hundreds of people, and they're there to sleep in the rooms, test the plumbing, make sure the electrics work, use the facilities. The problem was they needed to get this done, and the permanent fire alarm system wasn't ready yet. And they couldn't bring hundreds of people into a building until they had fire protection. Obviously the local AHJ wouldn't allow that. So they reached out to us and they installed WES. I think there was around 500 detectors installed in areas of the hotel, and basically used it as a temporary solution until the permanent system was activated. So it was installed throughout the building. It allowed them to do the testing, get the heads in beds, as they call it. And then when the testing was completed, WES was then removed. They then retain ownership of that product, because that can be then used again, and the permanent system was activated. And the nice thing there was the AHJ and the fire marshals in that area were super happy with signing off the product and utilising it, even in a live environment. So quite different to a construction environment, because it was pretty much a finished building. But because it was there as a temporary measure, they were happy to sign it off. They were happy with the performance, and that was a really nice use case for the product. And then finally, the US Naval Academy in Maryland that we did, and this was Turner Construction, one of the biggest GCs, obviously in the US. They were using air horns on this site originally. They had 120 people on site when they carried out the fire drill, and it took them 12 minutes to evacuate site using air horns.
And you literally mean hand air horns.
So yeah, in the event of an emergency, you go to your nearest air horn station, you blow the air horn, sometimes actually going into the building that's potentially got the fire to alert everyone.
To grab the air horn.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So they weren't happy with the time it took to get just 120 people off. So they reached out to us. we went and did a demonstration to them, and they installed the WES system throughout the building. Not just the evacuation, but the fire detection as well. They then asked us to come back and carry out a full fire drill once it was installed to see if they'd improved performance. Now, by this point, there was 240 people on site. Bear in mind, there was 120 previously. So twice as many people, and we managed to evacuate the site in 6 minutes. So we halved the time for evacuation with twice as many people there. Not only did they, obviously, they were very happy with that, but they also were able to remove their fire watch at night because they installed our detection systems throughout the building.
Wow.
So rather than rely on someone walking around and covering every square foot of the building every hour and noticing a fire, they utilised our smoke and heat detection system for automatic activation, which gave them more peace of mind that if there is a fire out of hours, like we just heard with the statistics earlier, over half of fires happen out of hours, that they would be notified. So, and that actually, we received huge praise from some of the senior members of the Turner Construction Company, and also some senior members of the US Navy as well, who were, with this being a naval academy, were super happy with the performance and what it allowed them to do. So, like I say, there are hundreds of sites we can talk about, but those just spring to mind as kind of different types of cases, but real success stories.
Well, it also brings to mind the fact that you should understand that the AHJ can make that decision to allow the fire alarm system.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to educate the AHJ.
Yeah. And I'm hoping, I hope a lot of AHJs are watching this, That's kind of what we want. The whole reason for this is to educate.
It's not always ignorance. A lot of people still don't know this technology exists. The majority of people. Every time we do an introduction to an AHJ or to a general contractor, whoever it may be,
I'm sure they're like,
wow, what's this? And it's like, to us, we've been doing this at Ramtech for such a long time that still feels strange. But yeah, I mean, we've still got work to do in terms of raising awareness. And like I say, hopefully, everyone here and everyone watching can learn something new about technology today.
I love that. So you guys have a white paper on WES 3. I want to, give us a finding that most people watching haven't seen yet,
Yeah, I think a good one really is just it's more broad, but what we really explore in the white paper is how methods for detecting fire and protecting and life safety in construction have been the same for years and years and years. Nothing's really changed. But what the white paper really goes into is how much construction has changed in terms of the type of projects that are being built, the size of projects that are being built.
Hazards have changed.
The hazards have changed, the materials that we use now, the different technologies that are on sites that can bring fire risk. So I don't want to give too much of a spoiler because I'd love people to go away and read the white paper. But ultimately what we really look into is that gap that we're talking about today, that construction has changed so much and advanced, but the safety standards haven't followed it. And the paper's a really interesting read to look at how we can potentially improve things moving forwards. And yeah, like I say, it was award winning, and this is the second revision. So the first revision won some awards, which was great. And now we've kind of revisited it a few years later and tried to update it with, times have changed. The white paper has now changed to see the changes that have come into the industry. So
how do I get a copy of that white paper?
You can visit our website, so www.ramtechglobal.com, and there's a link on there to be able to download the white paper. And please, anyone who's interested, go and have a read of that and see what we've been investigating and studying for the past few years.
Yeah, I love that. So Wayne, I want you to close us out. 2027 NFPA 241 edition is coming. And then the new NFPA 72 chapter is coming. What should working professionals and anyone watching this, what should they take away from our conversation tonight?
Well, I'm sure that everybody's thinking all this new stuff, I can't use the new codes yet because my jurisdiction's on an older code.
Yeah.
And what you have to understand is that's not true. If it's a new code, the AHA is more than happy to allow you to use the new code.
That's the big thing.
Because it's going to be more either technologically advanced, or it's going to be, have more items in there to make the building safer. And so it shouldn't be a big leap of faith to do that. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand that even though that it's going to be the 2027 edition of NFPA 241, and it'll be the 2028 edition of NFPA 72, where that the temporary fire alarm systems chapter is going to be located, you can still use it. You should always be forward thinking to get that And you should own a copy of each of those codes if you want to work with the AHJ, keeping in mind that they don't have that copy, because as far as they're concerned, they can only enforce the one that's referenced. And indeed, they can, but they can also accept the newer codes.
Yeah.
And that's the important part to take away from this is not only do we have the new technology, but we have the avenue of how to get there.
Yeah, it's kind of future-proofing.
And this allows our listeners to become the trusted advisor to the owner, because as James just said, everybody says, wow, we didn't know this existed.
Yeah.
So they can go to the owner, they can go to the AHJ, they can be the trusted advisor talking about the codes and also the product. So I think it's really an opportune time to close the gap and stop this terrible waste. I mean, just in my location in New England, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of buildings have gone up in smoke.
Yeah.
Firefighters have gotten injured. It's really something we need to address.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's time to become more proactive than reactive and stop looking for reasons not to adopt technology and start looking for reasons to adopt it. I mean, ultimately, it's going to improve safety, it's going to save lives, and it's going to make the whole industry a better place for it.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, James, Wayne, I really think this was the conversation that our industry really needed to hear. So thanks so much to James and Ramtech.
No problem.
You know, you brought the stats, the tech, you backed it all up. Love to hear and learn about, you know, the WES system. And then Wayne, thank you so much as always for your expertise.
My pleasure.
I feel like I always learn something new from you. Coming up, Wayne takes us inside NFPA 241, the code that's supposed to be closing this gap, what it actually requires, what most people get wrong about it, and what's coming in the next revision. We're just getting started.
You just heard what it takes to protect a job site, but every fire and life safety decision comes down to the same question: am I getting this right?
And most of the time, you're answering that alone, digging through spec sheets, guessing on compatibility, and waiting days for a call.
That's exactly what FireAlarm.com Plus was built to fix.
Plus gives you 3 things every working professional needs,
You find the right equipment faster.
which means real recommendations for your project and not hours of research.
You confirm compatibility instantly,
So you know what works together before you even order.
and you get answers without waiting.
Your technical questions are answered in seconds.
In seconds. And those answers, where are they coming from?
FireAlarm.com AI. It's trained on Wayne D. Moore's expertise and the NFPA codes that run this field. NFPA 72 device placement, mass notification, code interpretation. You ask it something hard and it gives you a real answer.
And there's the pricing piece.
Oh yeah, you get exclusive member-only pricing. Plus members can save on equipment and devices, project after project.
And that's how simple it is. If you're watching right now and you sign up today, you get 3 days free.
FireAlarm.com already supports over 30,000 fire and life safety businesses.
On a website, this industry turns to more than 10 million times every month. So start your Plus membership today at FireAlarm.com. Make faster, smarter decisions without the guesswork.
Welcome to the Code Corner. It is the responsibility of everyone in our industry to know the codes. And so what we're going to attempt to do is to help you understand the codes and learn what's inside so you can use them in your daily business. This is the segment of the show where we look at what the codes actually say. Not what the industry wishes they said, not what's easy to comply with, but what the law of the land actually requires. Tonight, we're going to look at 2 codes that govern fire safety on construction sites. First is NFPA 241, the standard for safeguarding construction, alteration, and demolition operations. The second is the important code NFPA 72, the National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code. Both of these codes are changing. In fact, they change every 3 years. NFPA 241 is releasing a new edition later this year, and NFPA 72 is about to formally address temporary fire alarm systems for the first time in its history. Let me walk you through what that means, starting with where the code is today. Let's start with NFPA 241. As I said, NFPA 241 is the standard for safeguarding construction, alteration, and demolition operations. And I want to be precise about what that is. It is not a recommendation. It's an enforceable law in every jurisdiction that has adopted the IBC and the IFC. Here's how the enforcement actually works. The IBC and the IFC are adopted by local jurisdictions as law. Both of them reference NFPA 241 directly, and that reference is what makes 241 enforceable as law. Where does it apply? Every structure under construction, alteration, or demolition, including underground work. Now, the IFC requires a fire watch on construction projects over 40 feet during non-working hours. Items the code doesn't specifically address, it requires compliance through NFPA 241. And here's where the industry gets it wrong. Most general contractors and project owners treat fire safety during construction as a fire watch checkbox. But 241 actually requires a comprehensive fire prevention program, and fire watch is just one possible element of that. The industry has been treating NFPA 241 as a fire watch requirement. It's not. It's a comprehensive fire prevention program. And the code has been saying that for years. So if NFPA 241 requires a comprehensive fire prevention program, the next question is, who runs it? Well, NFPA 241 requires the owner or the GC to designate a fire prevention program manager called the FPPM with at least one alternate. And the FPPM isn't a title on a clipboard. The FPPM has the authority to enforce the fire prevention program and the applicable fire protection standards. What does the code recommend for qualifications? Well, it can be a registered fire protection engineer, a certified fire protection specialist, somebody with a fire safety degree, or completion of a formal fire prevention training program. And the skill level scales with the project size and complexity. Obviously, small projects need basic fire hazard recognition and safety planning. Moderate to large projects need equipment knowledge and advanced fire safety plans. Here's the reality on most job sites. Most projects don't have a true FPPM. They have a site safety lead with other primary responsibilities, or they have no one explicitly designated at all. That is not what NFPA 241 calls for. And that's where the compliance gap actually begins. Every project under NFPA 241 has to have a fire prevention program manager. That's a code requirement, not a suggestion. And right now, most projects in this country don't have one. That's the first thing the industry needs to fix. Now let's look ahead, because 241 is changing. The next edition of 241 is the 2027 edition, and it's scheduled for release in August of 2026. If that sounds backwards, here's why. NFPA names its editions for the published year, and it's normally published just a few months before that year begins. That 2027 edition has improved language regarding the FPPM, and that new language is finally catching up to what the field has been seeing, that the gap on construction sites isn't a technology problem. It's a compliance problem the industry has been working around. Here's the opportunity. With the improved language coming later this year, working professionals can get ahead of this now, and they won't have to scramble when the new edition lands. The 27th edition of 241 is the most important code update for construction fire safety in a decade. Working professionals should be preparing for it now. And this brings me to the most important development in this entire segment. Start here. The International Fire Code gives the code official permission to allow a fire alarm system to replace the fire watch requirements. Now, the next edition of NFPA 72, which will be the National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code 2028 edition, will be published in 2027, and that edition will include a brand new chapter dedicated to temporary fire alarm and signaling systems. This is the first time the temporary phase has been formally addressed in NFPA 72. Let me tell you why that matters. NFPA 72 is the most widely referenced fire alarm code in the United States. A dedicated chapter on temporary systems means the entire industry now has formal standards for the construction phase, not just guidance buried inside 241, and there's something else happening behind this. NFPA 241 and NFPA 72 are collaborating together. The code committees are talking to each other in ways they haven't before. The temporary fire safety conversation is being elevated to a code level priority. This is the moment temporary fire alarm systems become a recognized category in the most important fire alarm code in the country. The working professionals who have been deploying temporary detection during construction now have formal code language to support what they've been doing. For the first time, NFPA 72 will have a dedicated chapter on temporary fire alarm and signaling systems. And that's not just a footnote. It's the code formally recognizing that temporary environments deserve permanent standards. Here's what I want you to take from the Code Corner tonight. NFPA 241 is law. The Fire Prevention Program Manager is not optional. Every project needs one. 2027 edition of NFPA 241 has improved language, and the 2028 edition of NFPA 72 will formally recognize temporary fire alarm systems as their own category for the first time. Compliance is the floor, not the ceiling. Now let's see what closing the gap actually looks like in practice. Over to you, Fabiana.
Thank you, Wayne. I'm Fabiana, and tonight, I'm where most of you would want to be, standing in front of the system. Joining me, back from the main interview, is James Pecz. James, before we open anything up, explain to me, the way you'd explain it to a contractor walking onto the site for the first time, what is WES 3?
Okay, so WES 3 is a completely wireless network of alarms specifically designed for use in a construction environment. So we have the ability to detect fire automatically during the construction phase with our smoke and heat detection. We can also have the site-wide evacuation with our call point unit, and everything can report off-site and on-site as well. So this is a system that is specifically designed for those challenging and hazardous environments and fits perfectly into the gap that we've been talking about today.
That is phenomenal. How long does deployment actually take on a real site?
Yeah, so as I just said, this is specifically designed for construction, and with that in mind, we've made the system extremely easy to set up and to deploy. It is completely wireless, so there's no need for any specialist contractors or electricians to install the system. It's battery powered, so there's no power required at all from external devices. So really the system can be set up in a matter of minutes at times. A great example would be, say, 30 devices can be programmed and installed within just a couple of hours, which is much quicker than a wired system, obviously.
Wow, that is phenomenal. Now, how is it different from a standard pull station?
That's a great question, and this is the call point unit that has actually a push button rather than a pull station on there. So in the event of an emergency, to manually activate the alarm, all you need to do is press the button and that would activate the alarm around site. Reset as well using the key. So that can just be popped out and then it's ready to go for the next emergency. Also, it has this medical device and button installed on the call point. So not only does it allow you to have an evacuation in the event of a fire or any other type of emergency, you can also call for medical assistance if someone's in need of first aid attention. And actually, just a few weeks ago, we had a site contact us and let us know that someone had had a heart attack on the project. One of their colleagues had hit the medical button. It sent a message through to the site to let them know where the emergency was. And the first aid response got there really quickly and managed to save the guy's life. So it's working in real time on sites today.
Oh my gosh, that is phenomenal. I mean, you're literally saving lives in every aspect. Like even a heart attack right on site, which is not what we always look for when something's happening.
Yeah.
So now, how does a smoke detector work on site full of dust and debris?
Okay, well, with the same kind of topic in mind around this being designed for those challenging and hazardous environments, the smoke detector is no different. So this is a dual chamber, dual optic sensor that's designed to distinguish between smoke and dust particles very well. This helps mitigate false alarms. So the beauty of the WES system is that we can get the early notification of a smoke detector without the risk of false alarms causing those evacuations when it isn't actually a fire.
False alarms are horrible, especially in fire life.
And expensive as well for contractors. If there's hundreds of people being evacuated when they didn't need to be, that's a big problem. So we help mitigate that.
Yeah, which is awesome. And that's so needed because the amount of money is all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Is, woof.
Yep, absolutely.
Anyway, so in all of this, if something happens at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, who knows and how fast?
Okay, so the system has a few ways of communicating off-site, and these are real-time notifications. So within seconds of a fire or an emergency happen, we can get those notifications off-site. We can do that via the interface by connecting with a wire into a building management system, a permanent fire alarm, or any other device that's going to communicate off-site automatically. But more interestingly, the Connect control panel has a SIM card installed and has the ability to speak into the cloud and pass data on. So what we can do is we can use APIs and webhooks to transmit that data instantly into things like monitoring stations off-site, security centres, and also to our mobile application to give an unlimited number of people instant notifications in the event of an emergency on the project. So we've got it covered in a few different ways. We can get those real-time notifications 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Oh my gosh, that's phenomenal. The technology in this is surpassing anything that's out there. Now, what standards does the West 3 meet?
Okay, so it's fully certified to the European standard EN54, which is specifically designed around fire alarms. And it's a very comprehensive standard to meet. So that ensures real quality with the product. Everything from the build quality to the way the system connects is ticked off in that certification. So that gives that assurance of quality with the product. As well as the European standards, we're also in talks with a number of other certifying bodies globally, including here in the US. So watch this space because we're going to have new certifications coming very soon.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Let me ask you a question everyone watching is thinking. We've spent decades wiring fire alarm systems into permanent buildings. Why does this temporary system make sense for the construction phase?
Well, ultimately, with construction sites being such dynamic environments where things are ever changing, to try and run cables and wires is not really going to work. We've had historically where sites have tried to install wired systems, there's damage to cables which can leave the system useless and not working properly. So it's really important that we get a system installed in construction that is able to move with a challenging environment, to be dynamic like the site's going to be. A construction site may have a ceiling that's there one day and the next day it's not anymore. So if you had to rewire a system each time there's a change, that's going to cause huge problems. That was really the focus with the system and why it was designed to be completely wireless. Not only is it easy to install, it causes much less hassle for the contractors on site, but also it can adapt and change with that dynamic environment on a daily basis and follow the risk of fire as the risk changes.
That is amazing. James, thank you. That's what closing the gap looks like in practice. Back to you, Stephan.
Welcome back. This next segment is one we're going to do every episode, and it might just be my favorite. We're going to call it From the Field. Every episode, we take real questions from real people working inside this industry, and we answer them straight. No PR speak, no softballs, just the conversation our audience is actually having. Wayne, let's get into them. Our first question comes from Antonio Ciprestri, an electrical engineer with 30 years in the field.
I am an electrical engineer. I've spent over 30 years installing and doing maintenance and repairing fire alarm systems in city buildings and on construction sites. I install systems in buildings to protect people and the buildings. But on every project, those same buildings spend months under construction with almost no real fire protection, fire watch, air horns, and manual processes. The industry has built incredible systems for permanent buildings. Why haven't we built the same thing for the time before the buildings is finished?
Oh, good timing on the question.
Well, that's a perfect question for this group. First of all, we have NFPA 241, which is being updated and will be out later this year. And finally, the new technology has caught up with, and the codes have caught up together. And I can see that more and more fire officials will agree with you that we need a better fire protection system in the building as it's being constructed. And you'll find that most products on the field don't fit. So you're going to have to look for something that is able to handle the dynamic nature of the construction building. More than likely, that's going to be a wireless application.
Yeah, and at this point, I think knowledge is power. So knowing about what's out there, and especially Ramtech system, for example, that's what's going to get you over the finish line with these AHJs, or if you're an AHJ yourself, to be able to put it on a job site that's on a construction site.
Yeah, it makes no sense to have all of this investment in a building unprotected up until you finally start covering up everything that's out there. And we've got so many activities going on during construction that can cause a fire and have caused fires that it makes sense to have a better protection system than just a night watch.
Exactly, and I think it was poignant what James said in our previous conversation, that most of the construction fires happen after hours. And either there's no fire watch there or there's just one guy and he's on the completely wrong side of the of the building, of the construction site.
Or the building is so huge he can't possibly make the rounds on time every time going through the building, and he won't be there when you need him.
Exactly. Cool. This next one comes from Dylan. 8 years in the fire and life safety industry, working with, the products and the people deploying them I believe, in the maintenance department.
I've been working in the fire and life safety industry for 8 years. I work with products, with the technology, and with the people deploying it. And I'm still learning because the field keeps moving. Wireless detection, mesh networks, cloud platforms. For people like me working inside this industry, where do we start? How should the industry be training the people already in it?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's two things. One, what's great is FireAlarm.com is, an authorized Ramtech dealer, and we can also train on the products through Ramtech. So honestly, if you're trying to get into this temporary fire alarm system space, Ramtech's obviously a great place to start. And that in conjunction with FireAlarm.com, I think, is going to be your best way to get this initial training on, this kind of newer technology, or at least now that it's being standardized. But then soon, what we've kind of spoke about before is, FireAlarm.com Academy. That's something that Wayne and FireAlarm.com were putting together, and we're hoping to release as soon as possible. I think that's going to be the best way to get trained, and dip your toes kind of in the water of temporary fire alarm systems and what's to come.
Yeah, I think that Dylan's question is one that I'm at least happy to hear one person say, where do I get training? Because most people, they get in the business and they forget that it's not a one and done type of business.
Yeah, exactly.
This is probably the most dynamically changing business that we have, where the new technology keeps coming out. We have better products for the applications. Ramtech's obviously the one we're talking about now. And you do need training, and you need to go to, first of all, the suppliers of the equipment to ask for that training on the products.
Yeah.
But don't forget you get training in conjunction with that on how the codes interface and how the product interfaces with the codes in the building. And that's going to be part of what we're going to be doing with the training programs at FireAlarm.com.
Yeah, awesome. About the code, the technology, the work, the industry, anything you're seeing on your own projects, make sure you send it to FireAlarm.com and Wayne, because we're working together to answer your questions, and we want to feature it on the show, but also show you what FireAlarm AI is doing with your questions. And that's all, with Wayne's database of questions and answers. It's really cool. We're going to actually show you guys that right now. We'll be right back.
There's never been a show built for the fire and life safety industry the way this one is. The FireAlarm.com show is where the whole profession comes together to share what we know, explore what's new, and talk honestly about the future of this field.
And let's not just talk. Every episode is built on giving you something you can use on the job.
Here's what that looks like.
Every episode, you get real conversations with manufacturers, engineers, decision makers shaping fire and life safety, the people actually doing the work on camera.
You get Code Corner with Wayne D. Moore, one of the most trusted code authorities in the country, breaking down NFPA 241, NFPA 72, and what's changing before it lands on your projects.
You get live product spotlights, new technology demonstrated on camera, so you see how it works before ever specifying it.
You get From the Field, real questions from real working professionals.
And you get first look at what FireAlarm.com is building for the industry. FireAlarm.com AI, trained on Wayne's expertise in NFPA codes, and FireAlarm.com Academy, training and certification built for the people doing this work every day.
Driving what's next, the host, Stephan Stanzione, electrical engineer and president of FireAlarm.com, with Wayne keeping everyone honest.
And it's built for all of us. Engineers, contractors, AHJs, facility managers, educators, and students that are stepping into the field for the first time. If you work in fire and life safety, this is your show.
And if you're a manufacturer or an innovator with a solution that can make this industry safer, we want you in the conversation. There are real opportunities to be featured.
Connect with us at FireAlarm.com and FireAlarm.com+. Learn more, take part in future episodes, and find out how to be featured on the show.
If you want to go deeper, the Companion Podcast takes everything we cover here even further, with Wayne breaking down the code line by line.
That's only the beginning. More episodes, bigger conversations, a global audience.
And all of it lives at FireAlarm.com, the website this industry turns to more than 10 million times per month, the trusted source for fire and life safety. This is the FireAlarm.com show. Be a part of it. Welcome back. A few minutes ago, we heard real questions from real working professionals. Where do we start? How do we keep up? What the industry is doing about it. This next segment is part of our answer. Fabiana, show them what we've been building.
Thank you, Michael. FireAlarm.com AI is the assistant that FireAlarm.com built for the people working inside this industry every day. Engineers, contractors, AHJs, students, anyone who needs accurate fire and life safety answers fast. It's trained on Wayne D. Moore's expertise and the NFPA codes that govern this field. You ask it about a specific code section, a design question, a product compatibility issue, a temporary detection scenario on an active site. It pulls from the standards and gives you a real answer, not just a search result. The best way to show you what it does is to actually use it live with a question that we haven't preloaded.
And who better to put it to the test than the engineer who's been in the room all night, James Pecz.
Yes, James. Pick a question. Anything you'd want to ask if you were specifying a system right now on a real project. Something with a real answer at stake.
Okay, let's put this AI to the test. Why would a building owner install a temporary fire alarm during construction?
See, look at that. How cool is that?
This is great. This popped right up.
What do you think, James?
Let's take a look. Yeah, that looks great. I mean, they pulled out there the requirement to safeguard the building during that gap that we've been speaking about tonight. The potential replacement for Firewatch, which is also a great option. The smoke and heat detection, the manual core points. Yeah, I think the AI's nailed it.
If you got a question just like the one James asked, code, design, compatibility, whatever's on your project, try it yourself. FireAlarm AI is live right now on FireAlarm.com+. Ask it a hard question because it's up to the challenge. FireAlarm.com AI is one part of what FireAlarm.com is building for working professionals. The other part is the FireAlarm.com Academy, and it's coming soon.
It's a training and certification platform built for the people working in fire and life safety every day.
Occupancy-based programs designed around the actual installations you encounter on the job, including the kind of construction phase fire safety conversations we've been having all night.
If you want to be the first to know when it opens, sign up at FireAlarm.com. And while you're there, reach out. Tell us what you'd like to see in a program like this and what you wanted to cover.
The topics we covered tonight are exactly the kind of thing the Academy is being built around.
Now, Wayne, what are your thoughts on this?
Industry really needs. For a long time, we've had the codes moving at a different speed than technology and the installation moving even further behind that. What we need is to bring this all together. And I think what you've seen today is that exact thing, bringing it together so we can close the gap.
James, thank you for the conversation, for the work, and for being our first guest on the show. And to the entire Ramtech team, thank you for sharing this premiere with us. The conversation we had tonight is exactly the kind of conversation this industry needed to hear.
And it's been a pleasure, and it's been great to be part of the first ever FireAlarm.com show. Thank you.
Wayne, last word from the code side.
The codes are catching up to the technology, and everybody needs to pay attention to that and use it to your benefit.
Wayne, Fabiana, Michael, James, thank you so much. Stay with us. We've got one more thing to do before we close out the premiere. Before we close this premiere, I have 3 things I want you to take with you. 1, every active construction site in America has the fire safety gap. It's been there for decades, and the industry has been working around it instead of solving it. 2, that's changing. The code is moving, the technology is here, and the people working inside this industry, the engineers, the contractors, the AHJs, the next generation coming up, are starting to demand something better. 3, temporary environments should never mean temporary standards. Hold on to that one. It's the show in a sentence. James, thank you for the conversation, for the work, and for being our first guest on this show. And to the entire Ramtech team, thank you for sharing this premiere with us. The conversation we had tonight is exactly the kind of conversation this industry needed to hear. I say thanks to Michael. Thank you, Fabiana. Thanks to the band. This is the FireAlarm.com show. We'll see you next time.
If you want more in tonight's conversation, download Ramtech's white paper, No Site Left Behind, at the link on screen. Sign up for FireAlarm.com Plus to try out FireAlarm AI and see it in action. Don't forget to check out the companion podcast as Stephan, Wayne, and James go deeper on everything we covered tonight. And of course, if you need a temporary fire alarm system solution, FireAlarm.com is a gold partner distributor for Ramtech products and solutions. All of this and more at FireAlarm.com, the trusted source for fire and life safety.